All right, thank you. First, I want to thank everyone again for coming out to Liberty Fest. Liberty is a very worthwhile cause, and it needs a lot more help right now. I want to thank Gigi Bowman and Sally O'Boyle for putting this together and inviting me out to speak. My name is Wes Benedict, and I serve as the Executive Director of the National Libertarian Party in Washington, D.C. I won't tell you I'm here from Washington, D.C. to help you. That probably wouldn't go over too well. But it is nice to be here. I actually grew up in Louisiana and Austin, Texas, and I've been in Washington, D.C. for 2 years. But I can honestly say it's nice to be in this room of people. I haven't seen so many crazy people since I was in Austin, Texas, with people like John Bush, the TAG activists, and so many libertarians and Ron Paul activists that Austin, Texas had. So it's very nice to be here. Liberty is something that we are losing more and more liberties every day. America is not becoming freer and freer. We're losing our liberties. I think 9/11 was a terrible tragedy. Whoever's at fault for it, I personally fault the terrorists, but I also, most importantly, fault what America could have done. We should not have such an aggressive foreign policy. We need to stop invading other countries. We need to bring our troops home from Iraq and Afghanistan. We never should have bombed Libya. All of that is generating enemies around the world. It's time to adopt a more humble foreign policy. Ron Paul was right for 20 years. He's right today. I didn't learn that until 10 years ago. About 15 years ago, and before that, I considered myself a Republican. And I wasn't a Ron Paul Republican. I was a run-of-the-mill conservative Republican in favor of every war, every military action that we could do out there. Those people I thought were the bad guys. I knew I hated Democrats. I was born to hate Democrats, and I was on the Republican team. Everything Republicans did had to be good. Everything Democrats did had to be bad. I didn't think about things like civil liberties, wars, foreign policy, all of that kind of stuff. Free speech, if you weren't, those kind of things didn't matter to me. It wasn't until I went to the University of Michigan, started thinking more about freedom overall. I took something called the World's Smallest Political Quiz, found out I was a libertarian-leaning person. Shortly later, I joined the Libertarian Party, and it was through being a volunteer and activist with the Libertarian Party that I learned to understand more and more about how all these wars were unnecessary. I never remember learning in high school, in college, or pretty much anywhere else that maybe if we'd done some things differently around the time of World War I, World War II never would have happened. Maybe we would have lost the people in the Nazi Holocaust. Maybe the Cold War wouldn't have happened. Who knows what could have happened? But the point being, there's a lot of profit to be made by people who want us to go to war, people who want to control us, and people who want to take our freedoms. Now, I was not born wanting to be in politics or help with campaigns and that kind of thing. When I grew up, I was good at math. I hated writing. I certainly hated delivering speeches. Hated most social studies, history, you name it. I consider myself an engineer. I got an engineering degree, worked as a manufacturing engineer, and I used to spend my free time, my spare time, arguing with friends about politics. I could stay up all night long, drinking beer, arguing with the same 2 or 3 friends over politics, and nobody ever changed their mind. I certainly didn't change my mind. My best friends never changed their minds either. But you know, I finally decided I'm not perfect, I'm not super smart, but I'm reasonably smart and intelligent. I can do something to make a difference besides just argue with the same couple of friends. And that's how I became a hardcore activist in the Libertarian Party. I have worked with other campaigns as well. Lots of times people ask me, you know, why don't all the Libertarians just quit the Libertarian Party and help Ron Paul or help someone else? And to that I say, I'm a big fan of Ron Paul. I think he's the greatest congressman that America has had for probably 100 years, if not longer. I think Ron Paul is very effective as a Republican in the Republican Party, as an elected congressman, and as someone who has run for president and woken up and cured lots of people's apathy all around the country and all around the world. For me personally, I'm more effective as a liberty activist in the Libertarian Party. Many others are as well. Another thing I like to say is that our freedoms won't be secure. Our freedoms won't be secure until Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, Anarchists, all of us are fighting over the best ways to shrink government. That's not what's happening right now. Most of the Republicans and Democrats out there are growing government. The Patriot Act was a bipartisan act. The TARP bailouts were bipartisan acts. Almost everything that almost every Republican and Democrat does has been geared towards growing government. That's exactly the opposite of what we need to do. Again, I thank you all for coming out here. I especially want to do one thing, and that is encourage you to consider running for office as a liberty candidate. Whether you want to run as a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, an Independent, it's great to go out to rallies. It's great to go out to rallies, wave your sign if you're at a Ron Paul rally, a Tea Party rally, an anti-war rally. Be one of the 1,000 out there waving a sign. It's great. I've done it a lot myself, and I bet a lot of you have done that as well. But when you fill out that paperwork and file to be a candidate, when you run as a Republican in the primaries or whether you run as a Libertarian, now that you're a candidate for Congress, state representative, city council, whatever, you will get invited to be on television. You will get quoted in the newspaper, and now instead of saying, you know, John McCain, those bailouts were wrong, instead of just yelling that from the audience, you can be on live television and say right there on television, John McCain, it was wrong for you to suspend your campaign for president and rush back to Washington, D.C. so you could help bail out all those banks. If you run in the Democratic primaries, you can be on live television and you can call out those Democratic congressmen who voted for the Patriot Act, who voted for the wars, who have failed to end the war on drugs. You can point those things out, not just screaming from the crowd, but right there on live television, in the newspapers. You can call them out. Again, my background is in manufacturing, productivity. When I served as executive director of the Libertarian Party of Texas, I recruited a record 168 candidates in Texas. That was 1/3 of all the candidates of the Libertarian Party around the country. We got 57% of all the votes. I guarantee you, not every one of those candidates was perfect. In fact, if I were to line all you up and then line our 168 candidates up that we had in Texas, chances are a lot of you out here would have made a lot better candidates than the only folks that I could find to run in Texas. You don't have to be perfect to run for office. You don't have to have the exact same views I have, but we need more people running as Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, all those different offices. People need to run and get the word out that liberty is what we need. Call out the politicians who are not delivering liberty, and who knows, you might just get lucky and get elected and you can make those things yourself. All right.